Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Thursday, January 6th, 2022. How y'all doing today? Do we lose traffic directing privileges there, officer? Thank you. Sorry about that. So if you don't have kids, you may not be aware, due to COVID, something about buses. They can't find bus drivers, or bus drivers, are getting sick because there ain't no social distancing on buses. That is not happening. So yeah, pick up and drop off has gotten In fact, my school district, because, Sage goes to the Dauphin County Tech, but my, more localized school district, they are now dismissing middle and high school kids, I think it's an hour early, just to try to get everybody home. I don't want to live through any more historic events, please. I think I'm good. I think that's enough slices. I think I've lived through enough of them, thank you. Anyway, all that aside. So I know it's been a few weeks. Oh God, it's been about a month now, right? I think the last time I actually published an episode was right before Thanksgiving. So, yeah, I had recorded a few episodes, and they were unpublishable for some reason or another, the drill. But here we're going to try again. Today's episode's mostly going to be about Judge Academy, so if you're not interested or whatever, feel free to skip it. And then next week, it's probably going to be my general thoughts on magic. And then we'll probably start moving into talking about other things, because I'm tired. But anyway, today we're talking about Judge Academy. So I decided I'm not renewing my Judge Academy membership, because I just don't get anything out of it. And I tried to reserve judgment, though I was skeptical about them from the beginning. Their reasons for being a for-profit entity as opposed to a not-for-profit entity were sketchy and thin. And the thing is judges spend a lot of time volunteering their knowledge, either through mentoring candidates or, helping new players learn, the deeper rules, I guess, because you can learn to play Magic at a high level, right? You have your main phase 1, you have your combat, you have your main phase 2. Sure, you can cast instants on your opponent's turn, but maybe not knowing when the best time to cast an instant is, not knowing the individual steps, not knowing when priority passes. I tried to once respond to somebody's land drop. You don't get priority when your opponent plays land. It's not a thing that happens. So it just still seems kind of ridiculous to ask judges to pay for the privilege of volunteering that time. And sure, when you cover comp events, theoretically you get paid. But one, not always. You don't always get paid in money. If you are getting paid, you get generally paid in like credit and product. You know, for smaller tournaments, like smaller cons and that kind of thing. At the higher levels, sure, you get paid like actual dollars, but they're really not much unless you live in the immediate area. Like, you know, your travel costs will mostly obliterate, if not exceed, the amount you're paid. Right? So, and, you know, before Judge Academy, when we had, like, the exemplar program under the old judge program, where for L1s, that was, like, the only way you could get promos outside of attending conferences, was have somebody nominate you for exemplar. And, you know, I can remember judges complaining about that. You know, like, I've done all this stuff, I don't get nominated. Like, how does one actually get nominated? Because that was a big thing, is L2s weren't using, like, they had a certain allotment of exemplar nominations. And I'm not trying to throw shade at them. I mean, everybody's got their day job. Like, you cannot make a living off of being a Magic the Gathering judge, I don't think. Not solely off of judging events. Like, sure, if you get a position, like, I know Riki Hayashi used to work for Star City Games. Now, I don't know what capacity he, like, his job with them was. I know he, you know, did a lot of events as head judge or one of the judges on the team. But I don't know if he was employed as a judge or, like, part of their organized play team, or, like, I don't know what he did there. And I know he was the judge program coordinator for a while. And I kind of thought that was a paid position, but probably not, looking back on it. So, much like, I don't think you can make a living off of being a Magic the Gathering tournament player. You can make a living off of being a content creator. And generally, in order to be a content creator with a bigger audience, people have to recognize your name from top 8s, right? But you're not living off of tournament winnings. And it's the same thing. Like, being a judge, you are not living off of what you're paid to be a judge. So everybody's got their day jobs. So I'm not throwing shade at, like, L2s that didn't take the time to look into, like, all the L1s associated with them. Oh, can I nominate them? Should I nominate them? But, you know, when somebody brought up that, you know, this was kind of bullshit, we don't really get much for being judges, the rhetoric was, oh, well, I mean, are you doing it to get shit, or are you doing it for the community? Because if you're not doing it for the community, maybe you shouldn't be a judge. You know, it's the same kind of, like, old rhetoric they use all the time to kind of gaslight underpaid but highly needed professions. Like teachers. I remember, this was years and years ago. This was probably over a decade ago, maybe looking at 2. There was some politician, I don't remember if they were senator, representative, or what. They had made a comment, because, like, the teachers union was striking. And their comment was along the lines of, well, teacher salaries should be kept low so that only people with a true calling to the profession go into it. Bitch, how about doctors? Right? Like, you want to talk a profession where you should have, like, a true calling to be there. Oh, your window was down. Then why are doctors paid so fucking highly? Because you would think And I mean, I've had my fair share of really bad doctors that maybe if it didn't pay so well, they wouldn't be a damn doctor. But anyway, all neither here nor there. Moving along. So, and sure, when the judge program was a free thing to be involved with, when you did not have to pay for the privilege, why is that cop wearing fatigues? The fuck? That does not look like a standard. Was that an MP from Gap? Like, what the? Anyway. Oh, God. It is too early. Focus. Oh, yeah, when the judge program was like a free thing to be part of, fine. Maybe that argument held some water. But when you're expecting somebody to pay for the privilege of volunteering their time, like, this is where this gets really fucking ludicrous. And when Judge Academy was first announced, and that there would be fees, by and large, the community reaction was, oh, well, you know, you're getting promos. Just sell, like, one promo, and it'll pay for your membership for the year. Okay, again, you're asking me for more of my time at that point, because you got to find a buyer who's willing to pay, you know, market price, not sell to a card shop dealer. That takes time and effort. Even just mailing the damn thing takes time and effort. You know, especially when you're not a card dealer, so this is not a thing you regularly do. But okay, fine, I guess. But now they're like, yes, continue to pay us, and now we give you nothing unless you give us more chunks of your time. And, like, this is just fucking ridiculous. Now, one, I'm not going to lose anything by this decision. I've already talked to Boss about this, and he says he does not care if I have an active Judge Academy account or not. And I am somebody who was certified under the old program and basically got to port over my L1. So I didn't go through the process of becoming a judge through Judge Academy. And maybe there are benefits there, because I will say, under the old program, you really needed a mentor, and that was sometimes difficult to find. I kind of stumbled into mine. And it was because, you know, I'm friends with most of the players at the guild on Facebook. And MacGyver and I were Facebook friends even back then. And his brother Murdoch, like, we interacted with some of the same threads, and he sent me a friend request and was like, hey, I'm not a creeper, but, you know, like, we seem to enjoy a lot of the same kind of books and everything, so. And somehow it came up between us that I was, like, kind of passively pursuing my L1, and he acted as a mentor. He directed me towards resources that were out there. There was a website, it was like mysticaltutor.com or something like that. I'll have to look it up and see if it's still out there, that had, like, flashcards on magic rules. There are a couple judge Facebook groups where people will pose, or they used to pose judge questions. I don't see that so much anymore. And some of them were like, oh, this is a situation I ran into at my F&M this week, and I thought it was a neat one, so I thought I'd bring it here and let everybody else take a crack at it. And some of them were, like, just completely made up scenarios that I'm sure have come up at some point in the history of the game, but weren't, like, the question wasn't inspired by a specific event or anything. He got me set up with the Judge Apps account, which the two other L2s I had spoken with prior to this, I didn't even know it was a thing. And again, like, I'm not throwing shade at them. Everybody's got their day job. There's a lot of volunteer time involved in being a judge. Like, fully. And Judge Academy is almost like a multi-level marketing scheme, but, like, worse. Because L2s don't get paid for the L1s under them. Like, nobody's getting paid here. Like, it's weird. And this feels to me like if you took kind of service industry workers, right? Like, retail workers, fast food workers, well, food service workers in general. And you're like, cool. So, here's an organization you can join. Okay, so what do they do? There's training modules. Oh, are they, like, good? No. No offense to anybody who has made these YouTube videos that are all the Judge Academy training materials, but they're not engaging, they're not interactive. It's listening to a YouTube lecture and then scrolling through the transcript, which is just a literal transcript. It's presented as if it's, well, here's the audio content and here is written content, if that's like a better way for you to learn. Except it is a literal transcript of the video, to the point if, you know, an image or, you know, something on screen is referenced in the video, that's like shown in the video, that reference is still in the text, but there isn't even a damn screenshot. Like, there's no image to go with it. And I'm sure for the format they were going for there, these people have done the best they can with it, but not everybody learns well from lecture, and I am a person who doesn't. The other thing is, these trainings don't reference back to the rules documents. You know, like, okay, we're going over, you know, two-headed giant rules. If you want to know more, if you want to read more, you can see rule set, whatever, from the comprehensive rules. Or, you know, today we're talking about infractions at Comp REL. You can see these sections of the IPG for the different parts that we're going to talk about. No, there's none of that. There's no referencing back to the original rules documents for somebody that's like, okay, I'm struggling to grasp this as you're presenting it and would like to go back and read about it. I have to pause y'all real quick. So it's not that the YouTube videos that they use are particularly bad for what they're going over. It's just, again, not everybody consumes information well in that manner, and there's no referencing other resources for if you're struggling to understand it presented in that manner. I also think it's completely silly that for these modules, you know, and this is especially as somebody who was already certified going in, but I had to go clear out a bunch of modules. I can't just go take the little quiz and, like, if I get all the questions right, okay, you clearly know this, and move on. I had to let the YouTube videos play out. I had to scroll to the bottom of the transcript. Now, the YouTube videos, you could scrub to near the end and just let the last few seconds play out, but, like, just let me take the test. And if I pass it, okay, we're all cool. I clearly already know this. Oh no, where's my mask? I wasn't prepared. There we go. Found it. It was in my pocket. So yeah, I don't find their instruction approach to be beneficial to me. So okay, you can take these training modules. Some of them you'll have to take, and some of them have nothing to do with what you do. Like, you're a retail worker, but we're going to have you take the food service training modules. Okay, like, this experience isn't really customized in any way. I'm going to pause y'all again real quick. So yeah, you're going to have to take training modules that don't feel like there's something that matters to you. Also, their organization of where to find things. Like, after working with EventLink for a couple weeks and having some questions, I went to look for the Judge Academy training on it because I thought I'd seen something about there being a training mod on EventLink and Companion. And I went and looked for it and I couldn't find it. And I was like, okay, I must be mistaken. No, there was one, but it was under like judging e-magic. Well, of course I completely ignored that whole block of trainings because I wasn't required to take them. And no, I have no interest in judging arena or moto tournaments or anything like that. But this is the system. Like, that's not where that should be. And there was nothing in this training that you wouldn't be able to deduce for yourself a few minutes into using EventLink. Like, this is like an anxiety reduction kind of training for I'm going to be running an event with EventLink for the first time and don't want to go in cold. And, okay, this is walking through these things that are relatively easy to find. If you use the word and therefore knew that it's a thing you should be able to look for, they were relatively easy to find. Now, there are things about EventLink's UI that are not as intuitive. But all in all, it's a relatively good user experience for a product from WotC. And, you know, I definitely, like, learned more about what was there by creating a dummy event with Boss and going through and looking for, well, what if we do this? What if we do that? Just this EventLink training, like, it was out of date, but I'm trying not to get too hung up on that because within a month of EventLink being live, and I think, see, this training was out of date for EventLink as I had used it to that point, and I think we waited like 2 weeks after organized play was, in-store play was permitted again before we ran our first event. So it really seems like that training was based off of the very first iteration of EventLink. And I gotta tell you, almost every week since it's been the thing we've been using, this is, what was that, like May? God, I don't even know. June? I don't know, months and months ago. For the first, like, 6 weeks, there were changes every single week. Like, every Friday, I'd go in, and I'd start poking around at stuff, and I'd be like, oh, they added this. Oh, cool, they added this. Oh, they moved this. And this training was, like, really far out of date. But again, I'm trying not to get too hung up on that because it did go through so many changes so fast. But, like, by the time I was looking at it, I feel like there should have been some update to this. But again, like, it just wasn't helpful. So, okay, like, we're going to go back to our analogy of service industry workers. And it's like, okay, so we have these trainings, but they're not great. Okay, cool. Do you negotiate for pay, you know, like a union does? Oh, no. That's still all on you. All right. Do you help with placement? No, but we do allow people to post about employers seeking people in this industry. Like, events can be posted on JudgeLink and you apply, or on Judge Academy, and you apply through Judge Academy. But there's no, like, helping you get staffed on events. Any more than filling out an application. Alright, so... Well, this is at least free to be a part of, right? Oh, no, you're gonna pay us. Do we at least get, like, some gap from it? Well, you can attend conferences. Okay, alright. So these conferences, right, they should be standard. I mean, especially right now, they're all online conferences. So there should be, I don't know, presenters that are getting a paycheck and, like, have standard material they're presenting, and I know if I'm going to a conference where one of the topics is the steps in casting a spell, I know, like, what the material would be, right? I kind of need a refresher on it, but it should be the same material. Nope. Volunteers organize the conferences, volunteers present at the conferences, and we don't provide any content for those presentations. There's no, like, standardized deck or anything like that. Okay. But there should at least be, like, a detailed agenda available when the conference event goes live, right? Like, when it first comes out and it's like, hey, here's an event you can join. You should be able to go read about what will be covered in this conference to determine if it's things that are pertinent to you, or that, you know, you're like, oh, I would kind of like to know more about that. No, that'll probably be, like, right before the conference is actually due to start, that all that'll finally be finalized, because, again, it's all volunteers. And not throwing shade at anybody organizing these conferences or presenting at them, because it's volunteer. Like, they're trying to fit stuff in around their day job and the demands of their life, and presumably judging events. But, yeah. 2 weeks out from the year-end conference for my region, I was like, so what's going to be covered at this conference? And the only answer I was given was soft skills. Like what? My cat is soft. I could do a presentation on that. Like, yes, I understand what soft skills are, but there are a lot of them. Like, can't get any more detailed than that? No? Okay. So, you want me to give 4 hours of my time, like, open a block of 4 hours to attend one of these conferences when I don't know what the content being covered is, so I don't know if it'll even be worth my time outside of, well, if you give us 4 hours of your time, you get these promos. Like, this is all just fucking ridiculous. Doesn't that sound ridiculous to ask people who are being paid around minimum wage, you know, less than living wage, to pay to be a part of something like this? Like, I don't know, I have a policy against donating money to and or volunteering time to for-profits. And yeah, I understand the Judge program has always benefited WotC, which is a for-profit company, but this, I don't know, it was different. But I mean, it is also the reason why I decided that judging at larger events was not a thing I was interested in doing. Because honestly, it just doesn't fucking pay enough for a company that theoretically has a pretty good bottom line. It's one thing, like, when I do comp REL events at my LGS, I have 3 options for payment. One's a box of boosters, one's cash, and one's store credit. What I get in store credit is right about the same amount SCG paid me for driving 2 hours each way, working 10 hours, but I was actually supposed to be at that event for over 12 hours. I misunderstood, because side events have, when the last one's being fired, and I signed on to judge side events, and kind of misread the posting, and yeah, honestly, if my team lead had given me any more guff about needing to leave at 7, again, after my 10 hours of being there, I probably would have just been like, and I'm done here. Here's your shirt back. I'm just leaving now then. If you're like, oh, well, you might not get paid. Cool. I'll just leave now. It really wouldn't have taken much at that point. Yeah. That whole thing is not for me. And sure, I take it in store credit because I don't need the cash, and honestly, it's a real pain in the ass for me to get paid for stuff because of my employment agreements with my day job employer. So it's easier all around for me just to take store credit. But for the same amount, like I said, it's slightly less if I take cash. But instead of driving 2 hours, it's a 20-minute drive, and that's if traffic's a little rough. It's a generally way less demanding schedule because, it's one event. As opposed to simultaneously babysitting / running 4 events. And he gets lunch for the judge staff. And in fact, because Sage goes to every event I judge in at the shop, and he usually plays in them, because I can't leave to go get him something to eat, boss usually just covers lunch for him too. Which, yeah, it's nice of him to do. That's part of that, relationship, the kind of loyalty on both sides. And I have no doubt in my mind that if something would go sideways, if I'd need to DQ somebody, if somebody would have an incredibly bad reaction to a ruling, that I'd have the support there from the staff. I'm not saying outside of the guy who got snarky with me because the L3 in charge of the side events team sent up the noob to get the paperwork leaked. I'm not saying that anybody on the SCG staff gave me any reason to believe there wouldn't be support if something went sideways. But, I don't know those people. And generally tends to be less hours. Because, yeah, sure, if I'm head judge, I'm showing up an hour before the event starts to, be there for player registration, be there for answering deck questions. If you have altered cards in your deck and are going to a Comp REL event, you want to get there early, you want to find the head judge, and you want to ask them if these cards are okay. Because the last thing you want is for in the middle of a match for it to be determined that these cards are not okay for whatever reason, and it becomes a whole big thing. You want to know from the beginning, and if they're like, yeah, nope, sorry, those aren't going to fly, you have time to replace. Also, I highly recommend bringing non-altered replacements with you. or purchase from a vendor there, or, you know, the shop if you're playing at an LGS. The 1IQ, one of the guys who comes up from Baltimore, I love that crew. They are such wonderful people. It's a pack of like 2 to 5 of them that come up from the Baltimore area. The one came over to me and was like, hey, can you do a deck check quick? I've been working on foiling out this deck and I'm like 3/4 of the way there, but it's not all foil. Can you just take a look and make sure everything looks kosher? Because we know foils have warping issues, and if cards are unevenly warped, it can be viewed as a marked card. Now, I wasn't head judge for that one, so I passed them off to the local L2 who was head judge. But yeah, that's the kind of thing you should do. If you have any question that something in your deck may be viewed as a marked card or may not, especially alters. Alters are very subjective over what is permissible and what is not. And end of the day, it's all up to head judge discretion. So you may have played with that alter card in 4 or 5 tournaments, but you're playing at one in a different location with the different judge. You want to get the approval before the event starts. So yeah, when you're head judging, you want to get there like an hour early. You want to get there around the time registration opens so you can be on deck for any questions players have. Any, like, this is my first time doing this. Can I ask you questions about my deck list? Like, I listed this card this way. Is that okay? Our comp events, now, we did have an IQ that had like 100 players. That is something I would really love to see us keep from COVID. It's the whole social distancing thing and acknowledging that people should not be packed into a space in the way in which one would pack sardines into a can. So, yeah. But we had like 100 players for this IQ. Now, I wasn't head judge for this one, so it was less hours on me. But I think we ended up at like 7 or 8 rounds of Swiss. It felt like a lot. Now, because I wasn't head judge, because I wasn't head judge, I didn't have to be there early. You know, local L2 was the one there at the start of registration, you know, to be on deck for player questions because he was the end authority on it. So, you know, and I only stayed on to judge for Swiss. Once we hit top 8, he was like, yeah, I can totally handle 4 matches on my own. It's cool, you can go. And that was a longer day, but now with COVID, we cap, because we have 24 tables, we cap at 48 players. So the last, the 1K that I was a floor judge for, we had 6 rounds of Swiss, but it turned out that the 6th round was like completely superfluous because the top 8 was already determined at that point. You know, it's just how shit fell. So once we got down, like, we were getting to the end of round 5, MacGyver was like, okay, I think we've, like, enough players have filtered out that I can handle it from here, you can go, because I was desperately trying to get out of judging this fucking event. I did not want to. But it was MacGyver's first time being a head judge, and yeah, that hits different. You know, when your decisions are appealable, you don't really feel the weight. But when you're the one, you're the final authority, your decisions are final, and you working a judge call could cost somebody, like, an actual material loss, it hits different. So, yeah, I showed up, like, half an hour early for the event. and did 5 rounds and then left. And I get paid the same amount as I got paid for driving 2 hours to Philly, having to be there by 9, not having enough judges on the side event team once we got into the time of day where everybody's breaks were being covered. Because, no, you should not be stuck taking care of 4 events at the same time with different starting times for each of the events, because you're spending at least 40 of the 50 minutes in a round for any one of those events turning over rounds for all of them. It's a very wide area to cover in a very loud environment, you know, because you're looking at, it's at least 4 tables, you know, 4 rows of tables, maybe more. Like, the whole thing was just fucking bad. And I get, we were trying to do the best we could with the judges we had to cover it, but, like, this was kind of ridiculous. Especially with wanting a, you know, Google Doc form filled out for every single judge interaction. And this was, of course, at the Valley Forge Casino. So we were on the Wi-Fi. Judges are, you know, given the Wi-Fi. Otherwise, yeah, nobody's filled out that Google Doc. Because if you're not aware, if you've never been to the Valley Forge Casino venue in the basement where Magic tournaments are held, there is like 0 reception. There is like a 2x2 square foot area, like, mystery where you can get a bar of reception. Everywhere else is like straight up dead zone. But yeah, you want us filling out this interaction form at the end of every single interaction when, no, I absolutely do not fucking have time for that. Because this entire time, I'm just running between, there is no downtime. There is no, like, standing and surveying your savanna of players. No, it's going between judge calls and keeping tabs on, because there's no timers, of course, because, God, that would be annoying, right? There's a timer going off every 5 minutes, and no, that doesn't help anybody. So you're the one marking the start of the round in your little notebook and keeping an eye on, like, when the round should be over and making sure you're calling the time, and, like, it was just a mess. And it just, frankly, does not pay enough for, you know, that level of stress and impact. Like, it just doesn't. I didn't mean for this to turn into a why judging at large events is a scam, but, and I mean, I know my LGS takes pretty good care of us. And I know not every LGS takes care of their judges the way Boss takes care of us. So I'm in a pretty fortunate position, especially because he does not require me to continue to pay for this nonsense. But yeah, they want judges to pay to be part of this, and then to get anything out of it is a constant investment of more of your time. Now, generally, I don't talk about things that come up in the groups or the Discord, because those are kind of closed environments, but one of the few interactions I've had in the Judge Academy Discord still is, like, kind of confusing to me. Like, I'm part of the generation that went from MySpace, like, logging in once or twice a week to go through and read everybody's blog posts, to Facebook with, like, the constant activity feed. And then, like, Discord's just a whole other level. I've left so many servers Not because, like, I was no longer interested in, the content creator, the community, or whatever. Just because I'm like, this server, like, I never interact with the server because it's just so constantly moving. I don't know where to, like, get involved in a conversation, so I'm just leaving it. And it's one less thing to make the little red dot appear over the Discord icon on my taskbar. Anyway, one of the few interactions I've actually had in the Judge Academy Discord was there was somebody talking about how they're having a hard time finding L2s to certify candidates. Now, one thing I will give Judge Academy, the test is now online. Whereas back with the old Judge Apps program, the test was a paper test and had to be proctored in person. Honestly, I think having your judge test be, like, completely closed just based off of your knowledge is really silly. But I think most tests being like that is silly. Like, I think when my kids have to take tests for school, especially on things like history, just, like, not open book, open note, it's kind of ridiculous. Because, I am never going to need to know who said, don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes on what day in what place without being able to look it up. And finding information is as much a skill as just knowing it. And especially as a judge, I look up rulings all the time. I have to be incredibly sure about the ruling, probably because I've already had to look it up at some point, for me to just give a ruling offhand. And if a player ever questions it, I will look up the appropriate documentation so I can show them why the ruling is what it is, so they feel comfortable with the ruling. And that's just how I do things. I know not all judges do that, but I want my players to feel comfortable with the rulings. So, yeah, I think the judge test in particular, not having access to outside materials that you would have if you were answering this question at an event, is kind of silly, in my opinion. But whatever. It used to be an in-person test and it had to be proctored and everything. And now you can take the test online. Okay, cool. There is an advantage. That's nice. But you still need an L2 recommendation before an L1 candidate can even take the test. And somebody was saying about they were having a hard time finding L2s that would do these recommendations. And somebody pointed out that L2s they had spoken with said that they were less willing to do it for a for-profit entity. And the defense was, well, you were always doing it for a for-profit entity. You were benefiting WotC. Now, I did take the pedantic route of pointing out that the judge program was actually under the DCI, which is not directly WotC, but the DCI was a subsidiary of Wizards of the Coast, therefore it's a distinction without a real difference. It's like saying, no, Magic isn't made by Hasbro, it's made by Wizards of the Coast. Yeah, but Wizards of the Coast is a subsidiary of Hasbro, so it's a distinction without a difference. And I'll admit, I was being pedantic, and it's cool. It's fine. And I pointed out that I think the real difference here is the fact that they're being asked to pay for the privilege of volunteering their time. And it was pointed out to me that you can mentor a candidate without ever paying a dime to Judge Academy. Yeah, I know. As an L1 who is not capable of doing the recommendation needed, I have mentored candidates, and then I have to pass them off to an L2. Now, luckily, my local L2s have been pretty responsive. And I have a considerable network of them. So if I reach out to the closest local L2 and he's like, yo, I can't do this right now, like, I got too much going on, I'll reach out to Murdoch, because he's like the next furthest out. And I'll kind of keep echoing out the circle until I find an L2 that has time to deal with it. But usually, the local L2 or Murdoch is where it stops. Every once in a while, I've had to reach out to the pirate captain. And, you know, we usually have a time frame that, okay, if one of the others does not have time to deal with this by this point, come back to me and I'll take care of it. So yeah, you can mentor without having the ability to give the needed recommendation, and that's fine. Again, it's something I've done. However, you still need a paid L2 account to give the recommendation. And I pointed that out. And it's like, okay, yeah, but if somebody else has done the mentoring, and I'm like, these L2s still have to put some time into vetting this candidate. It's like, well, I can think of a few people that if they brought me candidates, I would just blanket sign off on them. And I'm like, okay. Well, one, that is one of the things I go over with my L2s when I pass off a candidate with them. I give them my exact relationship with that candidate. Is it, oh yeah, this is one of my players from the shop. I've had them shadow a couple FNMs. They've done a pretty good job. If I had the ability to give them the recommendation, I would. Or, this is somebody who came to the shop. They seem to have good rules knowledge. They did shadow a couple events. They seem okay, but I don't really know them. They've come to, 2 or 3 FNMs. I've seen them take some rules questions. They did fine with that. I walked them through how event lengths works, but I don't know this person. Or, yeah, this is one of the random, somebody messaged me on Facebook. I have no idea who the fuck this person is. But, I went through and worked with them on answering questions they had about, the trainings on Judge Academy. Because, I'm sorry, with Judge Academy, you still need a mentor. So when you do a training module that you're like, hey, there's something I'm, really not getting about this, can we talk about it? Somebody to give you some real-time interaction and okay, yeah, oh, you're getting confused about, the layers involved here, or how the time stamping works here, or, whatever. So let's walk through that, and here are references in the rules documents. But yeah, I don't really know this person. We've gone through some things. They say that they think they're ready to take their test, but I have zero relationship with them. Because I do feel like if I say, oh yeah, this is one of my players from the shop, they're solid, I totally believe in them, I would give the recommendation if I could. I think the local L2 spends less time going through a vetting process with candidates like that than somebody that I'm like, I don't know this person from a stop sign, they randomly contacted me through Facebook. So do with that what you will. I think there's more of a process then. And as far as the, it's L2 decides how in-depth to make this process, if this is just a meaningless endorsement, you're like, well, just go sign off on them. What? Why do you have to do anything? Then just remove the requirement altogether. If you don't want that person, that L2, to spend the time talking with that candidate, maybe trying to get some face-to-face interaction with them and determine if, because being a judge is more about rules knowledge and policy knowledge. So, trying to get some FaceTime with them and verify that they do not have a swastika tattooed on their forehead. if you're not looking for L2s to go through all that and actually vet these candidates, just fucking remove the requirement. But as long as it's a requirement, that indicates some expectation that whoever fulfills that requirement and gives their recommendation has spent some amount of time trying to determine if this person is a good fit for, you know, being a judge and, you know, going to adhere to, you know, the general code of conduct and whatnot. So, yeah, volunteering my time for shit under the old program didn't really rub me the wrong way. I would make the time I could to do it, but volunteering when I have to pay for the privilege of doing so really feels shitty. Initially, when I was planning this episode, I planned to cover other material in this too, and not make it an entire 56 plus minutes of bitching about how ludicrous Judge Academy is to me. But, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot to cover, and, like, I don't know, I'm really annoyed about it. So, one thing I'm currently working on is I have to teach myself some new frameworks for work, just to make me employable on more projects through my firm. Currently, I'm working on React, which, I don't know, I feel like I just kind of get it, which makes me really nervous and makes me feel like I'm missing some really key, important point. That's imposter syndrome for you. And as I mentioned, I don't learn great from, like, just lecture. Now, I've gone through a couple different tutorials. I think I'm on, like, my third or fourth one. And they all are, like, code with me tutorials, like, we're going to build the sample project. So, I think one of the ways I learn best, especially with coding, is, you know, go through a tutorial, get walkthrough, like, here, write code with me. I'm going to show you exactly what code to write. I'm going to explain what it does and how it works. And then taking that and building something completely different that I have no roadmap for, because that will bring up issues of, oh shit, I don't know how to do this part. Like, one thing is, I know you're supposed to be able to interact with a database with React, and I think I have the vague idea, but none of the tutorials I've gone through have actually connected to a database. They're using this, like, JSON faux database thing. But I think the process should be the same. So that'll be interesting to see if I try to connect it to a database, how all that works. I really love that there are, like, these kind of full stack JavaScript frameworks. It's really neat to me. Anyway, so I've decided that my kind of, like, test project to really go through and have to apply these things I've learned in a different way that I don't have a roadmap for is building a judge resource site. I don't know how far I'll get with it, because it is going to be a lot of time, though using components through React seems like it's going to really speed that up. I don't know that it will ever get published. Right now it's kind of in the proof of concept stage, where I'm going to see if I can build things how I kind of envision it in a more interactive kind of training resource. But depending on how far I get with this, now I can really only cover L1 content because I'm an L1. I might reach out to some of the other judges I know and see if they would be willing to provide some higher level content. I think I'm going to see if I can build the back alley judge resource site, you know, with a knowledge test at the end and everything else. I want to call it an actual certification, but more just spit out an email to the user with, here's your score on the test. I want to call this a competing thing, but I'm going to see if I can build it. And if I can, see if I can make a secure enough test that we can call it a certification test. And see if we can, or see if I can bring a free option back to the market. Because, like, I feel like all of the Judge Academy apologists I interact with, I kind of feel like they are judges who became judges under Judge Academy and never experienced the old system. And don't get me wrong, the old system had its flaws. It was clunky because, again, everything was based off of volunteer work. So, you know, not everybody had time. But, and yeah, the old website was definitely, like, I'll give Judge Academy, their website's pretty nice. It is a decent user experience. There are definitely things I would do much differently, though I guess they just put out their, like, whole redone, rebranded site. So, I don't know, maybe that eases some of the pain points. But I don't know. I get the feeling that the success Judge Academy has had has mostly been because, yeah, the game's crooked, but it's the only game in town. That, like, if this is a thing you want to do, this is your only avenue. And I feel like that doesn't have to be the case. So, I don't know. It's kind of just a loose thought at this point. I've put some planning into, like, the database structure and everything, but I haven't written a line of code for it yet. So again, I don't know how far I'll get with it. Like, right now, I'm not staffed on a project for my job. I'm what we call on the bench. And being, you know, kind of proposed to different upcoming projects based on my skill set, which is why I'm expanding my skill set to make myself more marketable. So it could come to the point that it's like, okay, yep, I got a good handle on this. Oh, there's a React project. Cool, I'm going to go work on that. And the amount of open time I have to work on such things just completely evaporates. Because right now, I can work on it during work hours as, again, like a, you know, this is an educational process. But once I am kind of through that point, and again, on a project where, you know, I have a certain workload expectation, I may not have the time to really follow through with this. But this is a thing I'm currently working on. So if you are either a developer or a judge that would be willing to provide content and, you know, has opinions over what should be definitely covered and whatnot, or what you would like to see from a resource and want to collab with me, you can hit me up on Twitter at Sparrow, SPAYRROE, or you can email me lastpointgaming@gmail.com, LASTPOINTGAMING. No underscores, periods, or spaces or anything. Just type it like your space bar is broken. And yeah, we can work together. Also, if you are a member of Judge Academy and you feel like you're getting value from it and want to have a discussion on that, you can hit me up on either of those fronts. After a discussion, I may still disagree with you, and it's likely I'll still disagree with you. And I may discuss, or I may talk about our discussion on here, but not as a flex or dunking on you or anything else. Just this was the point brought to me. This is why I don't feel that gives me value, but hey, maybe it'll give some of you value. I would really like to have a discussion, and I promise I will not identify you in any way if I talk about it here. But I don't know. I would like to know what value people feel that they're getting out of this, out of what they're paying, other than, well, I want to be a magic judge and it's the only way to do it. So that's all I got for today. I know it's been a little bit of an extra long one, and was just an hour of me complaining about this program that I don't know, I feel like is asking a lot and giving little. It's asking a lot for what it's giving, I guess. Like I said, next week it's probably going to be ranting a bit about Magic, and then I really want to talk about Storybook Brawl. That has been my latest fixation, and it's really fun, and I like it a lot. It's very reminiscent of Hearthstone Battlegrounds, but I will not interact with Blizzard products anymore due to recent information that's come out about them, and, you know, all that happiness. Or not so happiness. So, an episode on that's coming up in the pipeline. But anyway, as always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll get to talk to y'all again next week.